Hi everyone. This afternoon I have a book review for you by about a book by George Orwell, but not Animal Farm or 1984. One of the other ones. This one's called Down and Out in Paris and London by George Orwell. When it comes to the title isn't very pretentious. In fact, it tells you what the book is completely about. It's about being poor in Paris and then being poor in London. It's quite literally about being down and out in Paris and London. Um, it was published in 1933, and as far as I know, it's the first full-length book that Orwell ever published. However early it comes in his career, though, you can sense some of the nascent ideas and concerns that would haunt his work over the next 15 or 16 years, namely the virtues of democratic socialism and the plight of the working poor. In Paris, the novel opens up by Orwell taking a job as a plongeur in an anonymous hotel, which he doesn't mention. A plongeur, by the way, is a French word that refers to anyone who does a pretty lowly job in a kitchen or a restaurant, basically. He basically washed dishes. So, he's back there. It's nameless, faceless, unappreciated work for the most part, and he certainly lets you know that. He trenchantly describes the caste system that exists within all of the finest hotels in Europe, from the manager to the lowliest of the low, including the plongeurs, the dishwashers in his case. His work is grueling. It lasts sometimes for 14, 16 hours a day, only to go home almost to get no sleep and then have to do the same thing the next day, 6 days a week. While in Paris, he befriends an ex-military Russian by the name of Boris, who is in much the same predicament. Eager to find a job that allowed more than a few hours of sleep every night, he eventually quits his job at the restaurant and heads to London. When he arrives in London, he is without a job and is forced to live in hostels and lodging houses. Because of British law, which says that you can't stay in the same one for more than a few days, he's forced into becoming a transient. While he's there, he meets several people, including the Irishman Paddy and another one named Bozo, who's a street artist. His ability to relate to them as more than simply homeless people is really extraordinarily honest and sincere. He openly admits that these people are every bit as interesting, and sometimes more so, than the middle-class Parisians and Londoners who walk the city streets and look down on Orwell and his friends. The details of his day-to-day life can be really debilitating to anyone with even a trace of optimism or faith in humanity. But the book isn't without its little gems. There are a handful of times when Orwell interrupts the action of the novel and interjects his critical social commentary. Even though they only last a couple of pages apiece, this constitutes some of the best writing in the book, and I think it sort of prefigures what's to come in his greatest essays. The shining example, I think, from the book comes from chapter 34, which has a section on tramps, which I'll read for you, since I'm eating a lot today, apparently. William Butler Yeats, and now this. By the way, if you haven't heard the Yeats poem, go and listen to it. It's really quite a beautiful little piece of work. Here's the bit on tramps from chapter 34. To take a fundamental question about vagrancy, why do tramps exist at all? It's a curious thing, but very few people know what makes a tramp take to the road, and because of the belief in the tramp monster, and most fantastic reasons, the most fantastic reasons are suggested. It's said, for instance, that tramps tramp to avoid work, to beg more easily, to seek opportunities for crime, even least possible of reasons, because they like tramping. I've even read in a book of criminology that the tramp is an atavism, a throwback to the nomadic stage of humanity. And meanwhile, the quite obvious cause of vagrancy is staring one in the face. Of course, a tramp is not a nomadic atavism. One might as well say that a commercial traveler is an atavism. A tramp tramps not because he likes it, but for the same reason as a car keeps to the left, because there happens to be a law compelling him to do so. A destitute man, if he is not supported by the parish, can only get relief at the casual wards, and as each casual ward will only admit him for one night, he's automatically kept moving. He is a vagrant because, in the state of the law, it is that, or starve. But people have been brought up to believe in the tramp monster, and so they prefer to think that there must be some more or less villainous motive for tramping. Other than that, I have to say, when he's not giving that kind of social commentary, I find the writing, I think it's much less compelling. Usually when you're talking about politics in a novel, it's sort of heavy-handed and boring. But he takes these social issues, and because he's lived them, because he's speaking about them from a particular time and place and perspective, that he can really get inside of them. It makes it more interesting that way. There's probably other things too, but when he's not writing like that, I think the writing is not nearly as good, to be honest. I have a few other books, but to be honest, I don't have 1984 and I don't have Animal Farm. I did read Animal Farm a long time ago, but I don't own it. I have Homage to Catalonia. I have Keep the Aspidistria Flying, and one other one. Can't remember which one. But I was really expecting to love this, but just kind of walked away feeling that it was a little above average. Maybe it had something to do with the fact that I finished it 2 days before Christmas in 2011. Maybe I was kind of self-consciously wanting something a bit more cheerful. I don't know. But sort of a mixed reaction to the book, I guess. Down and Out in Paris and London by George Orwell.